I'm hosting the seminar to hopefully give you guys some guidance about how to go about CLAT, AILET, and other consecutive law entrance tests. They're all quite similar, so the guidance that I give you should aid you through all of these. And the aim of the seminar is first to give you tips that I have and things that I followed in my 2 years while preparing for CLAT, and also towards the end to address whichever questions you might have. So a few instructions for this seminar. Um, if you take notes, that's lovely. That will help you because I will be providing you with certain strategies for mocks, strategies for each section of the paper for CLAT. So if you take notes, that will be very helpful for you. And please feel free to ask questions as in when I mentioned certain points, whatever difficulties you're facing. There will be an interactive session towards the end for the last 15-20 minutes where you guys can unmute and you guys can ask whichever questions you'll have. But even throughout the course of the seminar, if you have any questions, please drop it in the chat and I will be answering those. So let's begin. This is the law entrance test seminar for CLAT, AILET, MHCET, whichever exam you're giving to get into a law school. And yes, let's change the slide and let's move on to the agenda. So in this seminar, we are going to be first discussing what is the nature of CLAT and AILET, what type of paper is this, what is the paper expecting from you, and then as we understand and establish what the paper is expecting from you, we will go about what I did to prepare for this exam, and it worked out. So if you choose to use some of those tips, I'm sure it will be helpful for you. Then we will delve deep into each subject in this exam and how to prepare for each section of the paper. Then obviously the most important part of this exam is time management, your practice, and according to me, the most important, which is the mocks. So please pay attention when we reach the mocks part of this seminar. So yes, let's move ahead. What is the nature of CLAT and AILET? CLAT and AILET, as you all know, I'm sure, is a competitive exam. We have several competitive exams in this country, but how is this different from, let's say, a JEE or a NEET? What CLAT is expecting you to do for over 90% of this paper is not memorize anything. And we know that because we know that CLAT and AILET has no syllabus. There is absolutely no portion. For GK, we have an idea that, okay, we have to memorize the past 1 year of current affairs in GK, but for the rest of the paper, we honestly do not have a syllabus. And the point of this paper is it isn't trying to question, it isn't trying to gauge how well you can remember things. It's trying to gauge how well you can problem solve. When they give you a question in this paper, how well you're able to manage the time that you have and be most efficient and answer maximum amount of questions and gain maximum amount of marks. CLAT is a test of your aptitude in that sense, but it is also a mental test. It's a test to see how well you will cope with the stress during the exam. It is a test to see how well you will navigate the curveballs that CLAT will throw at you. And we will come to the curveball part of this exam a little later. So what I would like to establish for this section is that CLAT is not trying to test your memorizing skills, except for the GK part of the paper. Everything else is not trying to test your memory, it's trying to test your aptitude. It's an application-based test, which means that whatever you have understood by reading the passage, you have to apply and answer those questions accordingly. So this is what the paper is like. So then how to prepare for a paper that's so different from what we've been doing in school, where we memorize our answers and we just write them down in the paper, which is not what CLAT is at all. So it's very different from what we've been doing in school. So how are we meant to prepare for this? The first thing and the most important thing is practice makes perfect. You have to keep practicing each section. You have to practice different areas of this paper. You have to practice logic in a way. You have to practice quants in a way. You have to practice GK in a way. And hence, you will keep getting better. Let's move to the next slide. You have to balance, you have to give importance to every single thing. And when I say every single thing, I mean, yes, you will have to give importance to the quant section of this paper as well. Quants is, I would say, one of the most important sections of this paper, even though its weightage is the least, because I'm going to give you an analogy to the NEET exam. When someone decides to take up medical field, when someone decides to try to become a doctor, let's say, they are naturally good in bio. That's why they've been doing NEET. So if you say that, okay, I'm not so good at physics and chemistry, but I'm good at biology, so I will crack this exam, that's not how it works, because everyone is good in biology. In the same way, in CLAT, everyone is good in reading, writing. Everyone is good in the English section, in the logic section, and the legal section. What makes you different and what helps you stand out from the rest of the crowd is how well you tackle your GK and how well you tackle your quants. So you absolutely have to pay attention to each section. You cannot skip any section. There are some who might be facing difficulty with quants, as I've heard a lot of you are. There will be some that will be facing difficulty in GK. There will be some that will be facing a difficulty in logic or one of the reading sections. But you just have to know that it is not possible for you to skip any section of this paper and ace it. So you have to give equal importance to everything. Another very important thing that I did was that I found a support buddy. I've made a circle of friends. I made a circle of like familiar thinking family members who helped me in my preparation. My friends kept me on check. They made sure that I was doing the work that I was meant to do while they were doing the work that they were meant to do. My family to take up whatever I have learned, to give me support, to give me motivation. So make sure you find a support buddy. It would be very helpful if you create a informal WhatsApp group of 2, 3 friends that are preparing for this exam like you are, and they will guide you through, they will help you through, you all will solve your difficulties with each other, and they will keep you on check. And I know this is very monotonous for some of you who have been preparing for this for 2 years, like I was. It became so boring to have to do the same thing every day, which is just practice. You're not memorizing anything new. You're not doing anything different. You're doing the same thing over and over again. But that is what helps you ace it. What helps you ace it is doing the same thing and mastering what you're doing over the course of 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, however long it is. If you're giving CLAT 25, then the next few months. If you're giving CLAT 26, then the next year and a half. But you have to keep doing it every day. If you just make sure you don't give up and you don't slack off with the amount of work that you're doing, you've already finished 50% of what there is to do. So now that there are some general guidelines of how to go about this, let's go into subject areas and subject-wise preparation. How I looked at this paper, which is a little different from what a lot of people will tell you, but how I looked at this paper was that the reading sections, English, logic, and legal, are the same. What they're asking you to do essentially is to read a passage. Consider that passage to be God, which means that there is no amount of external knowledge that you might have heard or you might know that will take precedence over what is in that passage. And I tell you this because it is extremely important in logic, it is extremely important in legal, where there will be sometimes external knowledge that you will be reading while you're studying for GK, or you'll be reading when you go through some news sites that will tell you that what is written in the passage and the answer could change based on the knowledge you know. Like, let's say, for example, which is totally possible to happen, there will be a question that will maybe tell you that murder is legal in a legal passage. But what it's not trying to test how well you know your legal knowledge. It's trying to test how well you're able to understand what's written in the passage and answer the question accordingly. So let's say you read a passage that says murder is illegal in the Indian system. You obviously will be conflicted in your head because you will know for a fact that murder is not legal, and then that knowledge maybe somehow will manipulate the answer that you give. But that's not how you're supposed to answer this paper. You're supposed to answer this paper considering what is written in the passage being God. You're not supposed to make assumptions. You're not supposed to use external knowledge. Everything that you need to answer that question is in the passage. So English, logic, and legal, you follow these rules and you'll be good. What I primarily did, and this is for everyone who's currently in the 11th grade. Can I get some hands up for whoever's in the 10th grade or the 11th grade right now? I just want to gauge how many people here are in the 11th or the 10th. Okay, there is 1, 2. Okay. Okay, so quite a few of you are in the 11th right now. And what I did that worked very well for me and which will work very well for you, I hope, is giving importance to these 3 reading sections in your 11th grade because they're easy to do. They don't take up too much time. They don't make one too anxious. They don't make you too mentally stressed. And this is possible to give more time to this and give less time to your 11th grade because it is comparatively much easier than your 12th grade. And in this, I'm talking about the duties that you will have towards your board exam and the duties that you will have towards your school and your college that you're in for 11th and 12th. So giving importance to CLAT and not backing off and not slacking off in your 11th grade is a huge game changer when you reach the 12th grade and you have to balance preparing for boards and preparing for CLAT. So if you're in the 11th or the 10th grade, please start preparing now and prepare well. What I did was I did English, legal, logic, and quants in my 11th grade, and that helped me so much when it came to balancing the subjects I had to prepare for boards versus the subjects that I had to prepare for CLAT. So for everyone in the 11th grade, please work hard right now. You will be very grateful you did it in 1 year's time. So now that we've reached English, logic, and legal, we would also want to discuss how to prepare. What is the preparation strategy that you should be using every single day? Every day, please pick up a newspaper and read. I know it is the most monotonous thing. For me, it was as well. I just could not find interest in reading newspapers. But what newspapers will do is, first of all, they will help you with your GK. They will help you stay up to date with current affairs. But what they will also do is improve your comprehension skills and improve the focus that you have when you're reading a passage. Because honestly, there is nothing that the passages in the newspaper are extremely boring, right? So when you read something that's boring, but you can still pay attention and read it well and comprehend, you know that you will be able to do that in CLAT as well when and AILET as well when there will be boring passages and the answers that you will have to give for those boring passages will be monotonous as well. But when you're used to reading boring or maybe very complicated, very complex passages, and you're able to understand what is written in that passage, you will be able to answer the reading sections extremely well. So, read whichever, don't read fiction, don't read fiction as as practice to read. Please read research, please read educational, academic journals, please read research papers, read all these things that would not be as interesting to one. So we've reached logic and legal. What I did personally as preparation for these is in my 11th grade, I just kept solving separate sections. I kept solving just passages and I just kept doing essays versus MCQ answers. If you type this up in Google, you will find hundreds and hundreds of different sources that will give you a comprehension passage and you will just have to answer questions based off comprehension. We've all done this in school. This is why some of us find this section easy because we have done comprehension in school, and this is just one level harder. Now GK, which I'm sure scares a lot of you. It scared me as well because GK scared me as well, as I'm sure it does a lot of you, because it is so vast. There is so much to do and there is so little time. What helped me? First, please narrow down your sources. Find 2 or 3 different sources where you're getting your information from. You have to do GK every single day. What I did as preparation for during this exam is that I had this huge whiteboard in my house, as I'm sure a lot of you know, a whiteboard where you use a marker and you write. I kept that right in front of my bed every single day. And on Sunday night, I created a timetable for the entire week. So on Monday, there was, let's say I have to do week 1 of July GK and I will do a few questions in English. Then on Tuesday, I'll give a mock and I will do week 2 of May. And that way I created a timetable. And then every time I finished something, I ticked it off, I circled it. And what I did is I gave myself a little treat or a little reward for completing what I had to do. And it motivated me to do well. And also on Saturday night, when almost entirety of your board is ticked off or your to-do list is completed, the joy you get and the satisfaction you get and the feeling that you get that, okay, I'm making progress is unparalleled. So please be strategic in your preparation, have a set to-do list of things to do and tick them off as and when you do it. It will keep you accountable and it will motivate you to do better. So for GK, what I did is I did it every day. So in my to-do list, there was GK every single day. It might not be a lot. It'll just be 1 week, maybe 5 days of GK or 5 days of what happened in the past. You will not really make progress. You will not feel confident in what you're doing because there will be so much to do. And in the end, confidence is one of the most important things. Like I said, this is a mental test as much as it is an aptitude test. So, how confident you're feeling when you give the exam and how mentally strong you are while you're giving the paper makes so much of a difference. So, narrow down your sources as much as you can. Quants, which was the worst for me. I was struggling so much because I have a fear of math. I was not at all comfortable. I had this thought and I had this opinion in my head that it's only 10 marks, it's only 15 marks. I'll let it go. I'll get those marks from somewhere else. That is the mindset that I had in my 11th grade. And then I spoke to a senior of mine now who at that time had just finished his CLAT exam and gotten into NLSIU. And he told me that the only thing that set him apart from everyone else, the only thing that set him apart from the rest of the public, and the only reason he made it to a good university was because he did not let go of quants. Because those 5 marks, those 10 marks that you get from quants will be the biggest game changer. In my exam in CLAT, I'm giving you a personal example. 0.25 marks, 0.25, the negative 25 marks that you deduce was the reason people's university changed, was the reason someone went from NLSIU to NALSAR. So every single mark counts. So the 5 marks or the 10 marks that you might get from quants will be the reason you get into the university that you want. So please, please, please practice quants. It is actually really easy. The portion that is in quants, which is fractions, percentages, SICI, perimeter area, all of these things we've done in school. We've been doing since the 6th and the 7th grade. So honestly, the topics are not that difficult. You take up a topic, you affect your percentages, you do some very basic questions in percentages, then you go and you start doing set-wise practice. It's very easy. You have to do 1-2 sets every day. That's it. It'll take you 15-20 minutes of your day as long as you do it every day. No, you cannot get admission in Delhi University without attempting quants. At least in my year, that was wholly impossible. Like, I'm giving you a personal example of people that I know who got into NLUD and people who I know in my current batchmates. Not one of them has given this exam without attempting quants and gotten here. So every single person attempted quants for AILET who got into NLUD, and every single person attempted quants and CLAT who got into NLSIU. So I know this is very disappointing to hear. It was very disappointing for me as well, but it is not possible to attempt to give this exam without attempting quants and getting into a university that you want. So like I said, 15-20 minutes of doing quants every day. You pick up a topic that is important. You pick up percentages one day, you pick up SICI one day, you pick up ratios and proportions one day, and you get the basics of that sorted. All this exam needs in quants is for you to know the basics, but know the basics well. So as long as you do 15 to 20 minutes of quants every day, you first do individual questions. So let's say you have to know your inverse ratios well, you have to know your inverse fractions well, you have to know your inverse proportions well. Once you have all of this sorted, you first go about attempting individual questions. So not set-wise questions, not questions with a passage attached to it. First, you conquer your individual questions, then you move on to giving questions with sets. And once you've done that, honestly, you've done everything there is to do. Like I said, quantitative aptitude was the game changer, and keep external knowledge outside the paper when you're going to attempt this paper, except for GK. That is the only part of this question. And quants, obviously, you need to know your formulas. But for English, logic, and legal, you do not use external knowledge that you have. You answer the questions, comprehensive questions, based off what is written in the passage. Let's move on to the next slide. Um, for the next slide, what is the most important part uh, of any competitive exam that is time based is how to manage your time. There are 120 questions and there are 120 minutes. How am I expected to do each question 1 minute when maybe it's a difficult question? What you need to know is that obviously attempting maximum amount of questions is very important. The more questions you attempt, technically the higher likelihood you have of getting a better score. That's what you think. But that's not true because there is negative marking, which means that you would have been better off in not attempting a question that you were not sure about than you will be of attempting that question and getting minus 0.25. And how I look at it, getting a wrong answer is not losing only 0.25 marks, it's losing 1.25 marks, because you lose the 1 mark that you could have potentially got and you lose the 0.25 marks. So I would recommend, if you have absolutely no clue on how to give this, on how to answer this question, please skip it. It is not worth the risk of taking 0.25 negative. And practice. Practice makes perfect. The more practice you do, time-based practice, which means that if you're attempting 5 sets in English and you're just doing that at home as practice, please try to give those 5 sets in less than 15 to 20 minutes. You cannot take 45 minutes to attempt 5 sets in English and then think, okay, I've done work. That's good enough. That's not good enough, because your practice has to be time based. Every single thing that you do during your preparation for this exam, you have to time yourself while doing it, and you have to make sure that the time you're taking is systematically reducing as you progress with your preparation. Time management. Um, so now one thing that I would like to establish is that CLAT will throw a curveball at you. In my year, the curveball that they threw was that they gave the answers for GK in the passage itself, which has never happened before in the history of CLAT, where we have never had the answer to a GK question given in the passage itself. So it became less of a GK paper and became more of a comprehensive type paper, because the answers were literally in the passage. You had to read the passage and give the answer. But that had never happened. And during my preparation, I had never been used to setting aside time to read the GK passages, because obviously I knew that the answers that I had to give based off memory. They were never in the passage. The passage was just descriptive. So I had never been used to reading the GK passage. And then what I realized 15 minutes into the paper was that, oh my God, the answers for GK are in the passage. So if it will be so easy for me to get good marks if I just set aside time and I read the passages. But to read the passages, obviously I had to reduce the time that I take from each section and give it to GK, which is why you have to be flexible. You have to be able to adjust the time that you're giving in each section when you're preparing and you're giving your mocks, so that when it comes to the actual CLAT paper, no matter what curveball is thrown at you, you are able to overcome it. For our year, the curveball thrown was that the answers for GK were in the passage itself. So I reduced the time I took in English, I reduced the time I took in logic, and I gave it to GK. And that might not be the case for you. For you, the case might be that English, which is a section that's considerably easy, might become the most difficult question. And you might have to take out time from the other passages and give it to English. So that is what is important. You have to learn how to be flexible and you have to allot your time accordingly. And the only way you will do that is when you manage your time, when you're practicing for this exam, when you're practicing your sets and when you're practicing your mocks, and you make sure that the time you give reduces no matter how difficult that section is during that exam or during that test. So yes, time management prep difference during mock will be very different from the actual preparation that during the actual exam. So your preparation time management strategy will be different from the CLAT and AILET exam that you give, because that time it's do or die. You have no change there. So in mocks, what I would recommend is first figuring out which section of the paper works for you. So what I did is I attempted English, I attempted logic, I attempted legal, and then I used GK and quants as a break between these sections. When it got too monotonous or when I could not understand what I was reading well, and my efficiency during comprehension wasn't great, that's when I stopped doing English and maybe did a few questions in GK, or maybe did a few questions from quants. I got that energy back because I wasn't just reading monotonously, and then I went back to this. But that's what worked for me. For a lot of my friends, the strategy they use is first they solve quants, then they solve legal, then they solve logic. So please, while you're giving your mocks, establish which format of attempting this paper works best for you. While I say that, I also want to again reiterate that you will have to establish what format works best for you, but you also have to leave out the potential for flexibility, because you do not know what CLAT will demand of you during that day. So yes, you have to practice and you have to manage your time in this way. Let's move on to the next slide. Um, are there any questions so far about how to go about it? Any questions that you all are facing in your individual um, sections as and when you're preparing for this exam? Any questions? So right now you're a few months away from your exam. Giving 1 mock or 2 mocks per day is ideal. When you're let's say you're exactly 1 month before CLAT, I would recommend giving 3 mocks per day and attempt those mocks every day. And what I would recommend is getting a printout of these mocks and getting a printout of your OMR sheet and practicing these mocks in the OMR sheet. So I would not recommend giving mocks online. Please print, even if you're giving it at home, time yourself and give them on the OMR sheet, print it out and give it in the OMR sheet. How to tackle with GK backlogs, which is a problem that is synonymous to every single person preparing for CLAT. What I would recommend is doing what I did with my whiteboard, where you create a plan. You create a plan. So let's say right now we are in the month of August, but I have not done June and I have not done July. First, I would recommend doing week 1 of August. First, finish the month you're in. So move according to the month you're in, and then add 1 week from, let's say, June. And then the next day you do the next week of August and you add the week after that of June. So you work with August and then you go behind the month before that and you pick up 1 week from there and you manage 2 weeks at one time. So GK backlogs, I didn't make notes for GK, but I know that works for a lot of people. So maybe make notes for GK if that's what works for you. And basically create a systematic plan when it comes to GK. Don't free wing it. Don't do ke aaj chalo I'll do July week 1, then tomorrow I'll do August week 1. That it will not make any difference. It will not help you. So create a systematic plan and sketch it out. Sketch how you're going to reach each week of each month that you have backlog in and work according to that. Ma'am, logical section is so confusing. How to solve it without getting confused in options? Logical section is confusing, but the first thing I would tell you to do is remove the mental block that you have that says that logic is more difficult than English, logic is more difficult than legal. What all three sections are asking you to do is the exact same thing. They are asking you to read the passage and give answers based off it. I will agree with you when you say that the options in logic are similar to each other. Sometimes there are two options that seem so correct. So what I will tell you to do now is you use the elimination method. What is the elimination method? There are 4 options. You read the passage, you read the question, you read the 4 options. Now you will always have one question that is wrong for sure. How to identify wrong questions? The wrong questions are the questions which have extremities. The author never will say that. The author absolutely agrees. The author hates. The author loves. These are all very extreme words. These are all very extreme stances that your option is taking, which usually is never the right answer. So there will always be 1 to 2 options in the 4 options that are wrong. First, you eliminate those. Then you reach maybe 2 or 3 options that seem correct. What you have to find is the answer that is most well backed with what the passage is saying. So let's say there are 2 reasons to support option A. So there are two different sentences in your passage that agree with what option is A is saying, in your passage that is hinting to what option B is saying. So then you pick option A because it is a more well-backed reasoning of that of your passage. So you use the elimination method. You first establish what is wrong. You remove those, then you reach maybe 1 or 2 options, and then you just pick the option that is more well reasoned with what the passage is saying. Are 1 to 2 sources sufficient to prepare for GK as it is a vast subject? I would say absolutely yes, because GK is a vast subject. We know that, but when you go to so many different sources, you're picking up different formats of writing. You're picking up different formats of reading. You're picking up different information. Sometimes not all the information is very accurate. Getting accurate news is obviously a challenge that we're all facing. So when you narrow it down to 1 and 2, you're doing those 2 things, but you're doing them perfectly. You're reading everything that source has to offer, and that will help you not only feel confident in your GK preparation, but that will also help you be efficient because you're not all over the place with your preparation. preparation. You know exactly what you're doing and how you're doing it. You have a plan and you're following that plan. So I would recommend going to 1 to 2 sources. Maybe you reach 3 if that is what works very well for you. But please narrow it down as much as you can. Being all over the place will just confuse you in your head. And then when it comes to doing to revise your GK, you will not back that information only will become the biggest challenge, and you will lose so much time when you're trying to trace back that information. So please narrow down to 1 or 2 sources. Where can you get best mocks with new pattern of 120 questions? Another concern that I'm hearing very often is that a lot of you are finding it very difficult to balance your 12th grade with your CLAT. And that's why sometimes there is a lag, and that's why it is stressing you out. What I need you to first establish is your priority. What is more important to you? Is it important to you to get a good board score, which will not guarantee you admission in any higher institution, or is it more important to you to get a good CLAT score and get into a university and maybe not get a good board score? I personally, in my boards, I scored a very above average-ish score. I did not score excellently. I was not a topper in my boards because honestly, till 3rd December, which is the day I had CLAT, I had not opened my 12th books. I was only doing CLAT. And I know this is risky, but I had established what my priority was. You have to establish what your priority is. Is your 12th grade score important to you, or is your CLAT score important to you? It's very personal. I cannot answer this for you because you have to decide what you want to do. If you're sure that law is something that you want to do, you want to become a lawyer, and if you're sure that you want to become a lawyer through a good NLU, then I would recommend maybe after December also you have a good 2-3 months to prepare for boards, which in my opinion is enough. As long as you're doing, like I was doing accounts, I was a commerce student, so I was doing accounts and maybe SP and math, which are slightly difficult. I was doing like half an hour of that every day and just making sure that I was in touch with what the portion was, because these are subjects that you can't do last minute. So the subjects that you can't do last minute, do a little bit of every day. And for the subjects that you absolutely can do last minute, that are just basic theory reading and you answer the question, maybe leave more of that to after CLAT gets over. And I was in junior college, which is very different. My attendance criteria wasn't the same as a lot of you who might be in school in. What I would recommend is first, what a lot of my friends did who were in schools, please go and speak to your teachers. Please explain to them what you are facing. Explain to them that you are currently preparing for a competitive exam that is very different from any of the subjects that are there in school. When you speak to your teachers and you tell them that what CLAT is expecting from you and the CLAT exam is very different from any subject that you're studying in school. So obviously, when it comes to balancing your time, balancing your effort, it is very difficult. When you speak to your teachers, you speak to them respectfully and you explain your predicament to them and you show them that you're not wailing away your time. You're not doing absolutely nothing. You're preparing for something that's important for your career, and you're a sincere student. They will cut you some slack, they will be understanding, and they will try to help you out. Try having your parents speak to your teachers and explain to them that maybe you will not be able to complete all your duties when it comes to what your school is expecting from you, because there are duties that you have to complete for CLAT as well. So please speak to your, where your academics are concerned, please speak to your teachers. If you know that you are prioritizing CLAT, then please do that. And another thing that I would like to just bring about is I was from Mumbai, Maharashtra, and our board scores do not guarantee us admission anywhere. So right now, the only way, like let's say I decided, I wasn't sure that I was doing law and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a lawyer, but this seemed like the best option. So I'm preparing for CLAT right now, but I'm not sure. So I don't want to completely lag behind and score terribly in other things so that I don't have a backup, which I know a lot of you are thinking, I want to have a backup. So uh, again, your board score is not your backup, because at least for me personally, with my experience, I would not have gotten admission in anywhere. Even if I wanted to do a commerce subject, even if I wanted to do a BBA or a BCom, I would not have gotten in through my boards. I would have gotten in through other exams called MHCET, CET, like a lot of you have. So again, your board score is not the exam that will get you in, according in my experience. So maybe understand that, try to explain that to your family members, that that is not the exam that will get you anywhere. So maybe the importance that you can give to the exam it will be a little less. I'm not saying completely neglect boards. Please do not do that. That is still an important exam for you to give, but you have to establish your priorities and work accordingly. Even if you started preparing for CLAT late, like I said, there is not a lot of memorizing that you have to do. So you're not really that far behind. Don't keep that mindset that you're too far behind from people who have started preparing 2 years in advance. You're not. All you have to do is practice. Give more mocks, give more set-based questions, give more individual questions, and prepare. I would recommend not trying to mug up torts law and not trying to mug up contracts law, because honestly CLAT is not asking you to memorize anything. That is what I am doing now that I am in law school. Like right now I'm studying torts and right now I'm studying contracts. You don't need to be doing that before you even enter the university. What you need to be doing is learning how to comprehend what is in that passage and answer accordingly, and that is what practice does. So just make sure you practice every day. You will have to give more importance to quants and GK, and you will have to do a little more GK than everyone else, but it is very easy to do. A little bit every day will get you there. Just keep practicing. Now mocks. Now that we've reached the mock side, what are mocks? Mocks are basically the CLAT paper, the CLAT paper, questions like the CLAT paper, answers like the CLAT paper on an OMR. So you're essentially giving that same CLAT and AILET, but over and over and over and over again. So please give as many mocks as you can. I gave one mock every week. Then as CLAT exam came closer, I reached to doing 2 mocks every week. I reached 3 mocks every week. So give more mocks, keep giving those, and give them offline. Give them at your houses with your OMR next to you. Give it timed. And what a mock is, it's 120 questions in 120 minutes. So it's essentially the CLAT paper in its replica. What mocks will also help you do is that it will help you figure out which order of giving the paper works best for you. If giving English first works best for you, or first if you're attempting logic and then going to English works best for you. So that will also help you determine your strategy. You have to have diversity in mock practice, which means that you have to attempt mocks from different sources. You have to attempt legal edge mocks, you have to attempt IMS mocks, you have to attempt career launcher mocks. All of these mocks will only help you get better, because what in my experience, what I noticed is that the career launcher mocks, they were very accurate in predicting how the English section of the paper in CLAT would be. So a lot of their mocks were very similar to what the English part of the question was. But then what IMS was that the quant section of their mocks was very similar to what actually came in CLAT. So the more diversity of mocks you give, the more you're well prepared for every single possibility of types of questions that CLAT could throw at you. So use diversity, and also the more mocks you give and the more practice you do, the scope for getting questions wrong reduces. Because every time you get X question wrong, you understand why you got it wrong, you figure out what the right answer is, and then the next mock you don't make the same mistake, because you already have established that that's a mistake. You know what the right answer is. So for the next mock, you don't get that question wrong, and hence the scope of mistakes reduces. You have your best friend in mocks is time management, and the reason why it's your best friend when it comes to time management is because you have been practicing 120 questions in 120 minutes. You have been figuring out how, when an English passage is difficult in this mock, how you're going to manage your time from anywhere else. You've figured out all these different things, so it helps you manage your time. So in my opinion, mocks does everything that you would need to do. I got a 99.6 or 7 percentile. My rank was 42 in CLAT. So that was my percentile in CLAT. I scored 100.5 marks for anyone that wants clarification. And what mocks will do is it will obviously give you practice for your reading sections. It will give you practice for quants. It will give you practice for GK. It will also help you identify from the mock questions in GK which topics are important. So let's say now Olympics will be a really important topic for all of you. So you should be doing Olympics. And when you give more mock questions, you will figure out which sections in the Olympics, what Olympic history is important, and it will help you identify which topics you should be studying when you're going back and studying GK. So mocks does everything you needed to do, and it does it in 2 hours. So it's very helpful. Please give as many mocks as you can. A lot of my friends gave one mock every day. I think that's a bit too much. It's not balancing everything. But if that works for you, so be it. Give as many mocks as you can. And giving a mock is only 50% of the mock practice. The other 50% is analyzing your mocks. And that doesn't just go with mocks, that goes with any sort of practice that you do. You have to analyze what you have solved. You have to figure out what you did wrong, why you got it wrong, what the right answer is, why the thought process that you had while you were marking that wrong question was wrong. You have to establish that in your head, which means that what I did is if I took 2 hours giving that mock, I took an hour and a half analyzing my questions, analyzing my answers, analyzing it using the answer key, and figuring out what I got wrong and why I got it wrong. So, analysis, very, very, very important. And I will give you an example of analysis, right? So let's say in the legal section, I was getting this one type of question wrong over and over again, which was the question between the difference between culpable homicide and murder. This was a type of question that every time I attempted it, every time a section like that came in the mocks, I was just getting it wrong. What I did is I reached out to my faculty. I'm sure if you reach out to ASUG, they will be more than helpful. So reach out to your faculty once you identify which type of questions you're getting wrong. So for a lot of people, the question in English they were getting wrong is figures of speech, where they just couldn't identify which sentence matched which figure of speech. So they reached out to their faculty helped them explain the basics. Then when you give the next mock, you first attempt the questions that you're not being able to solve correctly, that you have gotten your doubts cleared out with. You attempt those questions and you'll see with every mock that your score will increase, because the questions that you're getting wrong, you have tackled those questions. You have figured out why you're getting them wrong. You figured out what the right answer is, so that in the next mock, you won't get those type of questions wrong again. And hence the amount of marks that you will generate from each mock will increase. Your percentile will increase and you will feel more confident, and hence you will do better during the actual CLAT and AILET exam. Please give offline mocks. It is not very helpful to give your mocks online on a laptop, on a phone, on a computer, on a tablet, whatever it is that you're using. Please print out these sheets and give them in person using an OMR sheet. Attempt versus accuracy ratio. It depends. Studying legal studies in 11th and 12th and legal reasoning in CLAT is the same. No, it is not the same. I personally never had legal studies, but legal studies, again, what school is expecting you to do is it's expecting you to memorize. It's expecting you to, I'm going to give you an example of civics. What school is expecting you to do is it's expecting you to memorize the difference between the legislative, executive, and judiciary. It's expecting you to memorize all these things. CLAT is not expecting you to do any of that. CLAT is expecting you to read the passage and answer accordingly. And honestly, I'm telling you, memorizing will really not help, because in my CLAT exam, we had this one passage about the legality that was concerned with drones and with artificial intelligence. And all of these things, honestly, there are so many laws, it is going to be impossible for you to do all. So just focus on being able to comprehend what legal information is given and use that principle to answer your questions. It's similar. Obviously, it will help you if you know the difference between, if you have a basic idea in legal studies, but it is really not that helpful. So you have to still work on legal reasoning. Attempt versus accuracy ratio, it differs in each mock because the difficulty of each mock differs. There will be one mock that will be really easy, there'll be one mock that will be really difficult, obviously, but you have to basically make sure that the amount of attempts that you're giving in each mock is increasing. Every mock that you give, you have to still try to attempt one or two more questions. Your accuracy might differ based on the difficulty of the mock, but please just make sure that your accuracy is also somehow increasing. Okay, we can move on to the next slide. That is an interactive question and answer session. So any one of you that has any question, it does not matter how stupid you think that question sounds. It does not matter how basic it is. Like if you want to ask me something like what is a mock, or if you want to ask me something like what is legal reasoning, please feel free to ask. It does not matter how basic or how complex. You can type it out or you can unmute yourself and ask me whatever questions it is that you have to ask. So please feel free. कितने घंटे पढ़ना चाहिए, वो डिफर करता है, क्योंकि मैं what I used to do, what worked for me is that मैं घंटे कम पढ़ती थी, बट वो घंटे मैं सिर्फ पढ़ती थी. मतलब I used to study for 3 hours every day 6 months before CLAT. 3 hours every day max. मैं उससे ज्यादा नहीं करती थी बिकॉज मुझे बर्डन हो जाता था, मैं बैलेंस नहीं कर पाती थी. पर मेरे कुछ दोस्त थे जो कभी कभी 8 घंटे पढ़ते थे और उनके लिए वो चलता था. So if what I would recommend is when you're studying, only focus on studying so that the number of hours you have to do reduces. For some people, studying more hours works. But basically, when you're studying, only focus on studying. And when you do that, 3, 4 hours, 5 hours is more than enough. Obviously, when you're 1 month, when you're in November and when you're in October, the amount of hours that you will have to give will increase. Right now, 4 to 5 hours is best. Um, um, So CLAT, the universities that CLAT gets you into is national law universities. AILET will only get in you into NLU Delhi. So if you want to get into NLU Delhi, then you will give AILET. If you want to get into any other NLU, NLSIU Bangalore, NLU Hyderabad, NLU Jodhpur, NLU Gandhinagar, all of these NLUs are through CLAT. So for AILET, it is only NLU Delhi. For CLAT, it is every other NLU. How to tackle with quant section. First, you establish which topics are important. I will name a few right for you right now that were primarily asked. Percentages, fractions, ratios and proportions, SICI, area, perimeter, volume, all of these things. Honestly, it's just these five that I have noticed that has been asked. So these five topics, you first do the basics. You first understand fractions, inverses of fractions, fractions when turned into percentages, fractions when turned into ratios. What you understand the correlation between these things. Once you do the correlations, it's very basic. The type of question that at least that were asked in my class were very basic. You figure out these topics and then you do first individual questions. So basically, first you'll do a question like what comes in school, which is what is 40% of 4 upon 3. You solve these type of questions and then you go to do your set based questions where there will be a passage and then there will be quant questions based off that passage. All of this you will get content from the internet. So if you Google CLAT quant section questions, you will find hundreds of them on Google. All you have to do is make one Google search and you will find everything. How to get rid of the fear of quants. I honestly also had a huge fear of quants. What helped me is just doing 15 to 20 minutes every day. You will realize that you are getting better. The doubts that you have, the questions that you're not able to attempt, the more time you give to it, the easier it will get. Honestly, the only way to get rid of the fear is to just do more quants. If you're really scared, do 45 minutes to 1 hour of quants every single day without fail. Figure out your basics, establish your basics well in your head. Go to your professors, they will be very happy to help you. They will be very happy to help your basics and get your basics cleared out. And once you've got your basics cleared out, you attempt those kind of questions more and more. You realize that you're getting those questions right more and more, and yeah, your fear should reduce. If you clear CLAT, you can get into any NLU except NLU Delhi, depending on your score. And if you clear AILET, then you will get NLU. If there is anything else that you want, please reach out to me. Please feel free to reach out to me. I will try to answer you at the best of my ability. My email address is right there, sarahcherawala@gmail.com. Which course am I pursuing in NLU Bangalore? I'm pursuing the BA LLB course. NLU Bangalore for the 5-year program only offers BA LLB. NALSAR also only offers BA LLB. I think the only university that offers BBA LLB is Gandhinagar, NLU Gandhinagar. But yeah, NLU Bangalore has the option for a 3-year LLB course, which is what you do once you already have a graduate degree. So yeah, that is the answer. Does anyone have any more questions before we conclude? which NLU is better for judiciary? See, I would recommend going to an NLU that is in a city where there is a high court. But honestly, right now, even judiciary, you cannot be sure of, because you first have to get an LLB, then you have to practice as a lawyer, then you have to practice as a lawyer for over 10 years in a high court. There's a lot of intricacies that go into it. So honestly, the NLU that you come from will not make the most difference. It will be your practice as a litigating lawyer and then giving the judiciary exam. So again, whichever NLU you get into will be good and will help you out. But getting into an NLU that is in a city where there is a high court obviously helps, because then you can do your internships under under high court lawyers, under Supreme Court lawyers, and that should help. Yes. So aim for the best. I would say aim for NLU Delhi, aim for NLU Bangalore, aim for NLU Hyderabad. Aim for the best, because they are the best, because they have reputed alumni that come, and there are reputed alumni that come, that pick you up for internships, that give you job offers, because it has such a strong alumni base. So obviously aim for the best and then work hard and you will make it. Is DU good? Yes, DU is a good university. Of course it is. There are other options that are not just NLUs also, but NLUs obviously is a safe option, but DU is also a good university. Yes, it's a very good university. Is there anything else?
Hi, I just wanted to confirm, like CLAT exam, it requires more of your understanding of the knowledge and not your memorizing, except for, I guess, your GK
GK.
section.
Yeah, GK, and you have to obviously memorize the formulas in math. But otherwise, I would not recommend memorizing, because honestly, the passages that come in quants are not the ones that you can foresee and memorize in the first place. Like there was a passage about the regulation and the rules and regulations about drones in my CLAT. Like even if I was memorizing basic laws and I was trying to memorize the constitutions and the directive principles and all of that, I still would not have ended up memorizing the rules and regulations of drones. So it is not very helpful to memorize. It's more helpful to learn how to do application based questions and apply what you're reading into the answer. So yeah.
Thank you.
Uh yeah, no problem. Is there anything else? If there isn't, then we can conclude. Thank you, ASUG, for giving me the opportunity to host this. And I hope this was helpful to all of you. Please reach out to ASUG for any type of help that you might need during your preparation. And my stream in class 11th was commerce. I took the commerce stream and I did not take math, but there are people who take math and also get here. So any stream you can take, you can do law. You in the science stream, you can do law in the commerce stream, you can do law in the arts stream, humanities stream, whichever stream it may be, it does not matter. And yes, for any questions whatsoever, please feel free to email me. I will be very happy to help you. And yes, good luck. Let's hope to do this more often. How to increase reading speed is another question I got. Sorry. Um, to increase reading speed, obviously you have to just read more. Like there is a very simple answer to this. Read more and read more every single day. Read, and I would not say read more. When I say read more, I don't just mean read more fiction, read more fun storybooks. I mean read more newspapers, read more academic papers, read more journal articles, read more things that are monotonous and not very interesting. But when you read them more and you read them more every day, let's say you read a 500-page essay every single day. Make sure that on day one you're taking 2 minutes to read it. Try to make sure that the second time you're reading a different 500-word essay, you're taking 1 minute and 30 seconds. The next time you read it, you should take just 1 minute. So time yourself while you're reading all these different passages, and your speed should increase. Vocabulary, again, the more reading you do, your vocabulary will increase, because obviously the more reading you do, the more you're exposed to different types of ways of writing, different words, different figures of speech, all of that. So the more writing you do, the more reading you do, your vocabulary and your speed will increase. So yes, thank you everyone. Thank you ASUG. I hope this was helpful. We will plan to do this more often, so that the more doubts you guys come up with once you start giving more mocks, marks, once you start doing more practice, those different doubts are addressed as well. So please be on the lookout for more seminars like this. And yeah, good luck and all the best. I think we can conclude here.